saddle again.
Back here. But this program has
Back where a friend is a friend.
This program has been the ongoing study of Kundalini energy and energy in general. And I wanted to bring Paula on because she spent a lot of time in India. She spent a lot of time with the masters. She understands the Shakti energy, and she's had some divine mother, I guess, connections there. So I just wanted you, Paula, to talk about a little bit of your background dealing with the energies that you met in India and how really Kali, you sense. Can you tell the story when you learned Transcendental Meditation? And
I learned Transcendental Meditation after my first husband left, and I was 19 years old, maybe about 20, and he, it was a bummer. So when he left, there was somebody living in my house that was selling hashish, and he gave me hashish for rent. So I smoked it. And when my ex-husband, then still husband, would call, I didn't really much, it broke a connection. But within not even 2 months, someone told me about Transcendental Meditation. And they said you couldn't smoke marijuana for 15 days, 13 days. I remember I was 2 days shy, and the initiator didn't come through that often, so I pushed it and got initiated. And, it was a very dramatic experience to be initiated. I remember, I now know what it was. It was an invocation and a descent of the mother and probably Kali. That's what I discovered in Varanasi when I was meditating at 4 a.m. on the banks of the Varanasi. I go, wow, this is where TM comes from. It was the exact same experience. And what it was she's taking care of everything. And I was worried about my ex. And I said, if I ever become a mother, I must remember this.
Well,
not to worry.
Well, just to give you a little background about Kai, well, how can you relate to that, Kai? But also give us a little background so Paula knows where you're coming from in your awakening experience.
Well, my life was a little more dramatic probably because I was living in Los Angeles, married to a rock star. But I was also introduced to yoga and meditation during my divorce. So that was my way of really coming to terms with everything that was happening and finding peace as well. But when I got what?
Woman, yeah. I said I knew you two have a lot in common.
Yeah.
No, but go ahead, continue, because Paula had an initiation of a realization, but you had also a Kundalini activation. Well, maybe you did too, I guess.
No.
Okay, but go ahead, Kai.
Well, what happened with me was I was originally in the Yogi Bhajan style of Kundalini yoga. That's what I started doing during my divorce because my therapist told me to do yoga and I didn't know anything about yoga. So I just went to a Kundalini yoga and I started having some things, Kundalini type things happening while I was in the Kundalini yoga. Like my third eye had just intense buzzing, like sounded like thousands of bees, and I was kind of thrown on my back. I had an out-of-body experience after a yoga class and things like that, but I didn't feel that full degree of Kundalini awakening until I met my guru, which was about 3 years after that, probably.
Who's your guru?
He was in the lineage. His guru was Baba Muktananda, Dhyan Yogi Madhusudandas. He also spent some time with Ananda Maima.
So he awakened you. I told Paula the story what you told me and on the air about how he awakened this energy in you, but in a way he wanted to control how you were working with it, which is sort of this.
Well, I wouldn't use the word control as much as, like, to me that puts a negative connotation on it. And I don't see him at all negatively. It's just more that he's very immersed in tradition.
Right.
So he wants anyone who's doing the work, giving Shaktipat, with him backing it, he wants them to do it in the way of his tradition. And for me, the mother, and I'd like to hear about your experience with the Divine Mother, but the mother would come through me and just give Shaktipat. And so it was coming through in a different way than what he wanted or what tradition would have looked like. And he was trying to get me to stop doing that. And I did for a while, but it just felt so wrong to go against what the Shakti herself was doing. And he said that that's mental identification coming in. But for me, it didn't feel that way. For me, it felt very pure.
I just want to say that is the conflict between Eastern and Western spirituality, I think. And it seems like Hindu, Eastern traditions want to follow a formula and doesn't value the true spiritual awakening that's happening with Westerners as valid. You know,
that's interesting.
That's my observation. I mean, Kalishwar was different because Kalishwar, which we studied with, was a real innovator. He said what was the thing he said? He didn't want followers, he wanted masters, right? You remember he said that?
Oh, I'd like to hear about him. That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, Christmas '99, he did a very amazing miracle where he made a cross lead leaders and leaders of blood. And I had just arrived at that ashram with my girlfriend, and she was sick. So as this process was going on, if I was alone, I would have just climbed over the fence and left because the negativity was intense. It was so uncomfortable. It was like the worst experience of my life.
It was your own negativity coming up to be released? Is that what you said?
I don't know whose it was. It was just.
Oh, okay.
I knew if I got out of there, I'd feel better.
Oh, okay.
But I couldn't leave my friend. You know, I'm good at jumping over fences, and you know, it's hard to contain me when I know what I want. But this was amazing. So the people that were involved in this process had been doing long mantras for many months. I hadn't. Obviously, neither hadn't had Molly. So this was, I now realize he invoked Kali. And that's what the blood was about.
And that's what
other people were having divine experiences.
I didn't hear the whole part at the beginning. You were a little quiet at the beginning.
He said he was an invocation of Kali, which brings up anxiety if you're, aren't prepared for it.
Well, I didn't know that at the time. And the manifestation of the goddess in the form of Kali is the most powerful because there's no illusions to get sucked into. If you get Saraswati, knowledge goes on, and music and art and beauty, or Lakshmi, money, endless money schemes and ways to make money. But I think with Kali, this is the form of the goddess that cares for everyone. There's nobody that she doesn't look after and she doesn't get upset about if her child isn't taken care of. So if you enter into a relationship with her as a child, she's your mother, then she'll take care of you. She has to.
You've had experiences with that because you sort of bring through that energy, Kai, and it does challenge your personality. It was what you told me, like your ego is getting shredded in a sense. That's what you said. I mean,
yeah, well, it's true. More this year than ever. But in those beginning years at the ashram, I had this just intense yearning to go for the hardest core. Every time we would do an Anastan, I would ask, can I please do one to Chamunda? And then it was, can I please do one to Chinnamasta? I just wanted the most intense form of Kali. And these are goddesses that are just even more intense than Kali. So I wanted that energy, but I needed that energy. I was coming out of pure materialism, pure, married to a rock star, model, stripper, actress, musician. Those were my kind of titles in Los Angeles, and dating famous people. That was my world. That was completely my world. And then I dove completely into this other world. I needed to be purified. I really needed to be purified. So Yes, I needed her energy, but it's loving too. It's not like she takes you over the top. It's not like she tears you down to the point of not being able to handle it. You know, it's that she has that very nurturing energy too. And when I work with people, people will say they see this, like I'm kind of sucking this blackness out of people. People have seen me kind of sucking this blackness out of people. But then, so it's intense, and like I'm making these really intense noises, and then it just goes into the softest, most gentle, nurturing, and the person will just like start crying on my shoulder, and it's hugging and gentle and sweet. And
well,
And you developed that yourself when you broke from your guru, as Alan said, but you don't seem to agree with. And I'm curious because sometimes Alan does get a little pushy about his perspective.
No, it wasn't pushy. I was just going by what maybe I reinterpreted, but you did break from your guru because...
No, I did. I was having Kali manifestations in the very first months of being with my guru. In the first 3 months. And then that developed over the years.
But did he like that part that you were doing these, or was he, that's what I thought you said, he was trying to control it. And so, but where did you make the break from the guru?
Yeah, okay, I'll make that more clear. No, many people were manifesting Kali and other deities at the ashram when I first went there. If you walked into the ashram when I first went there, it looked like an extreme insane asylum because people were peacocks and monkeys and, well, Hanuman, there was somebody who was always Hanuman. Kali, you know, I would just get up on my toes and start running around the room with my eyes closed, cackling and screaming, I am Kali. So everybody was doing that. Everybody in the room was doing that. So
was that because the energy was so powerful within that ashram space that it was coming through in those different manifestations?
Yes. And that's why I could never, I love my guru and I will always love him. And that's, I guess, what I wanted to say is that there are no negative feelings for him. I mean, the power around him, it's big. It's big what goes on at his ashram. It's just wasn't working for me anymore. But that's why it was so hard for me, because I loved him and I loved being with him.
But when you say it wasn't working for you, what wasn't working for you?
That he didn't like the expression that came through me.
Oh.
Like, I can tell you exactly the things that started happening. I started speaking in English. That was like absolutely a no-no. Don't allow the energy to speak in English.
Wait, you were channeling sort of the Kali energy and it was coming out in English, and as opposed to Hindu or Sanskrit?
As opposed to the Shakti language.
Did you tell him
I never heard of it.
Did you tell him that the Shakti, that the divine speaks all languages? No.
Well, you know, his understanding, and I can't say exactly what he said, but when it comes through in English, then your mentality is affecting what's coming through.
Wait, let's tell Paula what the Shakti language is. That like speaking in tongues, the light language? Is this what you're saying?
Yes. Yep.
And you were making too much sense. You weren't speaking just gibberish or something, right?
Well, I started speaking in English and actually, and then that's how I do my sessions now. That's how I do my YouTube videos now. That's really a big part of my expression now, is that the energy does speak in English and she does work directly with people in that way. So then I was told to separate that expression from the Shakti pot. But for me, I couldn't separate that expression from the Shakti pot, because for me, it's the same expression.
So what?
And then something happened at one particular Shakti pot where I'm going to say the mother, but it, you know, through me, took someone's hands and placed them on someone else's back and said something to him to indicate that he should be doing the work, that he should be giving Shakti pot. And apparently this caused a big problem with my guru, because he kind of already had a problem with this person. I think that was a final straw. I don't know, but yeah, that it's confusing to me. It's still confusing to me.
But but I just wanted, Paula doesn't quite know, like when, so you bring through the Shakti, and you could bring it now. And then sometimes it's a sort of gibberish speaking tongues, and other times it's more English directed,
She
right?
goes back and forth. If you watch my YouTube videos, you'll see the whole video goes back and forth between English and another language, and English and mudras. And so that's just the way that she works through me now. It's pretty fluid.
I don't understand how your guru could fault you for doing something that's a message from the divine.
He could probably give you a lot better explanation than I'm giving. So I don't want to discredit him in that way.
I think I understand what he meant.
I mean,
but
if it's coming in English, it's coming in English. What are you going to do?
no, but I think, I'm not taking his side, but he probably
Taking
with
a side?
his intellectual ideas was, well, if it's coming through English, you must be using your mind. And if you're using your mind, you couldn't be channeling the divine. That's probably.
Or that you are somehow influencing what's coming forth because you understand what's coming forth. Whereas if it's the light language, you don't understand what's coming forth, so you can't influence it, maybe.
Yeah.
But here's a funny story. So this is a story I like to tell about that, is that in the early days at the ashram, he didn't seem to mind when it came through in English. So I think something happened over the years. So one of the main women at the ashram, her daughter was there, and she was 2 or 3. She was really little. And apparently I had said, and I didn't remember this, I had said, the pig is flying in the air, the pig is pink. And I left my guru for some time and came back to him. And when I came back to him, the way that they described to get to the ashram was, they said, turn at the pink flying pig, turn off at the pink flying pig. There's a pink flying pig on the road. And she reminded me of that when I came back. So this was 15 years later after I had originally said that.
Mm.
And that was in English. So that was always my, well, wait a minute, that came through in English. And that was a pretty clear indication of
Did they put the pig up after you said that?
No, it wasn't their pig. It was on Topanga Road. It was on Topanga Canyon Road. Anybody that knows Topanga probably knows the pink flying pig. No, it's somebody's business or house or something.
Oh.
It just happens to be that it was an indicator of where you turn off to get to the ashram.
What was the validation you're saying about what?
For me, that was a validation of that the speaking in English is okay, because 15 years earlier, she had told me that.
But you know what I would like?
15 years, wow.
But I think also why I wanted to bring Paula here is that she's had some deep insights into some of the traditions, some of the, what was the tradition where they cut the head off a bird and they bring it back to life?
Well, I wasn't there for that miracle, but there's a lady that, Anya, she witnessed it, and it's beautiful when she talks about it.
Right. Well, Kalashwar said there's 3 ways to heal: with water, milk, and blood. And blood was the most powerful. But
can you tell me a little bit about Kalashwar? I know the name, but I don't know who that is.
Oh, let's see. I met him at the Ramtha School of Enlightenment, where I was not given permission to leave.
Okay.
So after wine ceremony, I jumped over the fence and hitchhiked.
I love you.
So by the time I saw him, it turns out after I got into town, we'd been camping out, and I thought, oh, here I am. I'm going to go to a restaurant. And so I had a nice meal, and I was an hour late. But he was an hour and 5 minutes late. So and that person who told me about him gave me a seat up front. So I sat up front, and he started with your typical Dear Divine Souls. And I thought, ho hum, another Hindu with the Dear Divine Souls. So because I had just seen this outrageous wine ceremony, and preceding that was a lady named
Audrey?
No, sex slavery in the White House. Kathy O'Brien.
Kathy O'Brien.
Kathy O'Brien came through, and she was talking about sex slavery in the White House. Outrageous story of pedophilia. And I'd never heard these kinds of things before, and I was just stunned and shocked. And she came on at 10 in the morning, and by noon she was off. Now, I had planned my escape because I knew I didn't get permission. So I knew I'd have to climb the fence.
You were escaping from the Ramtha school?
Yeah, well, just for a day because they were doing a retreat and they weren't letting people out. But Paula really wanted to see Kalishwar, so
Yeah, Audrey.
she climbed the fence to see.
I love that. Okay.
Audrey, who gives permission, said, "You want to see a manifesting master from India instead of being with Ramtha, the enlightened one? You most certainly can't have permission." And at that time I had a lot of money. I wasn't used to people telling me I couldn't do things. So, and there wasn't enough time to call up Alan in New York so he could straighten this out.
Alan wasn't there. Okay.
I wasn't there.
I wasn't there.
So he'd gone back to New York.
Oh.
So I figured the path of least resistance is just to go over the fence. And they had water too. It wasn't just a fence. So I knew I had to be careful, and I knew being drunk probably wouldn't be good. But the wine ceremonies never started until in the evening. So I figured I'd have to blow off a wine ceremony, or because he didn't come every day anyway. So you didn't know
if Ramtha was coming. Yeah.
But right after Kathy O'Brien, he came at noon. He came that early. And I said, well, and so I hung around. And
Ramtha came at noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
didn't usually come so early.
That was a lot of Shakti too, if you really want to experience that. But that's another little story. So
yeah,
continue with the Kalishwar.
Okay.
I went to the Ramtha school because Alan was the only one who could comprehend a very profound experience I had at 28 years old in New Delhi, when Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had 3,000 people gathered to do the so-called levitation technique together. And I had an experience when he was talking to Keith Wallace, who was a doctor who had submitted research that meditation was a fourth major state of consciousness to the New England Medical Journal. They were making their way into medicine. So most people found these discussions of science to be extremely boring, but I loved biology in high school. So as Maharishi was talking to him and people in the crowd were leaving, I kept moving up closer and closer because there were so many empty seats. And pretty soon I was at the spot where you're not supposed to be if you're just the unwashed. I mean, it's what they called world government. It was the wealthy people that could travel with him, went to Switzerland. Anyway, I had a pretty sustained experience of physical immortality. And in that experience, I actually had a vision of my husband in bed with someone else. In other words, all the trauma, were just boom, boom. And I realized, this is not worth my immortality to get worked up over, whether he's right or wrong. And it was another thing that I wanted to put on the back burner to remember. So then years later,
you were telling me that experience, and I really understood that.
I told meditation PM people, nobody could pass that experience. So
but you told me about the physical immortality.
We were making the bed in Gramercy Park, and I mentioned it. And I was just sort of waiting for the typical blow-off reaction. And Alan didn't blow it off.
Well, I said, if you want to see an immortal or an ascended being, come with me to the Ramtha school.
Yeah.
And then you'll have that experience. You had some profound experiences.
I had very profound experiences. I mean, once there was an earthquake, and they were mad at me because I didn't get out of the room. And I said, I thought that was just... that was
part of the energy. That is a Kriya. A lot of people get that Kundalini Kriya, the earthquake one.
She trusted me to go to the school, and then she went to Kalishwar just to catch people up on the story.
So by the time.
So wait, so is that out on the West Coast?
Yeah, that's outside of Seattle and Washington, outside of Tacoma. And it's still going on. It's a great mystery school. I mean, it's a real training for going inward and pulling the energy up and manifesting your dreams. it was powerful for me. I mean, I still do those practices that I learned there.
And you said there was Shakti, were people getting kriyas and things?
They weren't getting kriyas in a traditional sense, but they were getting visions. We were staying up for days. I was starting to see through walls. I started to see through my blindfold.
Yeah, I could see.
Wow.
I mean,
Joe Dispenza comes out of that tradition. Everything, the whole creating your day was something he got from Ramtha.
What the bleep do we know? Do you know that?
Yeah, that whole movie came out
Does
of the
she know
Ramtha
that, or
school.
she's too
You
young?
know that. No, she's young.
What?
She said, "Are you too young to know what the bleep do we know?"
No, I'm 52. I'm 52.
But
Do you know that movie?
You know
What
the movie.
I do.
Still
I've
might be
actually
too
been
young.
to like 3 Joe Dispenza retreats.
Right. So Joe and everyone in What the Bleep really came out of the Ramtha school. William, what was his name? William, the guy who produced the movie, Mark Vatens, the guy who shot and directed the movie. Everyone.
Yeah, Mark was on my show Going Out Live in Manhattan, and that's why Pilot Baba was very interested. So when Pilot Baba came to town, I was able to interview him. There's no question that, and I was doing the best I could because at one time I had a lot of money and then it all went. And I still said, you still have the vision. And
but she did very expensive yagyas. Didn't they throw diamonds into some of those yagyas?
What? Really? Wow.
But then get back to Kalishwar because that comes back. So go.
Sorry, you're fascinating, vast. I could talk to you for hours, but go ahead.
Come to Woodstock.
Okay.
I would like to see more physical events happen. I think Woodstock could be made a world-class seminar destination point, and I'm trying to work with the politicians here to get their shrunken minds more expanded, because I see what the money game is, and it's a really cheap, quick gain when they deny you access through your IP address. I understand the game.
But I just want to go back to Kalishwar because he was sort of a magical being and had very high powers.
Can you play that link for 2 minutes?
Oh, the link.
This would be the best thing.
I don't know. Well, tell a little bit more about Kalishwar and I'll find the link to.
So afterwards, my connection, George Sobel, said, "Do you want to meet him personally?" And I said, "Okay, why not?" And I met him personally, and after the lecture, the Dear Divine Soul lecture, that didn't seem to really particularly move me.
Okay.
He mentioned he was going to have some special. He didn't know what would happen, but it was 1999 remember Y2K?
Mm-hmm.
I was freaked out about that because I was surrounded by misinformation. So I was really afraid about Y2K. So I thought to be in a country like India where there's a cow nearby, I would have a better chance of survival. So I said, I'll go and see you in India. And I didn't want to say what was really on my mind, which was the pedophilia stuff. But I did say, can you heal government mind control? That's what I said. Because
you said that to Kalishwar.
Yeah, because they were using children and blackmailing politicians to get them to vote in bad ways for the people. And so I thought, if you can, because George was in the room, George Sobel, I thought I would offend him if I brought up an issue like pedophilia to a holy master. So,
but Kalishwar was a lot more progressive than George.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know any of these things. He first of all, he was very, very young and handsome and beautiful, and in the back of my mind, I thought, wow, he looks like he might have been a victim of Satya Sai Baba.
He was. I think he was.
I'm pretty sure.
I think that's how he got his manifesting energy. He would do vibhuti or manifest rings. But
even if it's abuse, I think it's still an initiation.
Well,
There's still energy happening if it can be processed. So
some people interpreted Sai Baba's actions that way, but I think it is still abuse.
Well, apparently at 14 years old there was rumors, or I don't know, the legend was the screaming Swami, a 14-year-old, was carried off to Satya Sai Baba's room screaming. But everybody thought, oh, he's seeing God, and he could heal the 14-year-old.
So Kaleshwar, his parents were
devotees
of Sai Baba, and we think he probably had, although he sort of hinted at that, didn't he? He had some kind of interaction. But he got initiated to do these miracles as well. What was
I'm just sensing, Kai, that you're following on another level, because this is a lot of information that can be very easily misconstrued, because even the inner circle, some people, maybe all of them, because somebody told me, towards the end of my 4 years, when I went all around India and had privileges to go in and out of his ashram, that I was a spy for Satya Sai Baba. And I laughed, because to me, I felt so close to Swami that I didn't have to be close to him. I didn't have to, call him Sri Sai Kaleshwar Swami, because he's connected to the...
Is he still embodied?
No.
He knew he would have a short life.
And it was very short. He died sort of suddenly. It was kind of tragic. But
I wish you could find that.
I got the link.
You want to watch it? It's only 2 minutes.
Now what? But he was very connected to Shirdi Baba, and there's this whole misunderstanding in the U.S. that Shirdi Baba and Sai Baba are the same being, or reincarnation, and everyone in India knows that Satya Sai Baba is no way related to Shirdi, who was Shirdi Baba, who was an incredible saint, very compassionate. When dogs were beaten in his village, he would break out in welts, because he just had so much love and compassion.
I don't know if you can see this. All right, pass by Baba, because I'm not allowed to have his picture on the internet. See that one in the corner there?
Yeah, the white one, yeah. Oh, that's a statue of Shirdi, right?
No, it's a manifestation of Shirdi. When my guru went to India, I'm going to tell the story real quick, but since you're talking about Shirdi Sai, they went to his shrine, and
we went to Shirdi. He can actually speak to you if you do a little hands-on there of his shrine. You'll hear a voice. I did. I mean, you hear him.
My guru had said to him, I want a picture of you. And so they were sitting outside after they had gone in, and somebody came up to them dressed like Divine Mother that looked like him and said, you wanted a picture? Mm-hmm. And he didn't understand at first, and he went away, and then he realized, oh my gosh. So then he came back and they got the picture, and that's the picture. And then he ran in and disappeared into the shrine.
Well, Shirdi was, quite a miracle being. I think
that's not the one.
That's not the one? That's the one you sent me.
20 minutes. I sent you a new one.
Oh, okay. But I'll look for that.
Just
but
2 minutes.
No,
only because you're talking about slavery.
No, but I also want to say that Shirdi appeared to Kaleshwar when he was at school as an old man, and he gave him a bowl of porridge, and Kaleshwar was just a student. I think he was law student or something. And he said, why would I want to eat that? And then the old guy stirred this around, and it started to smell sweeter and sweeter. And Kaleshwar ate that bowl, and he was sort of out for 3 days and came back with sort of these magical powers. I mean, that's the fast track of his biography. But then it was an awakening for Kaleshwar at that point. How old was he?
I don't know. I'm guessing, and it's only a guess, that if he was sexually abused by Satya Sai Baba, then the mother is coming in the form of Shirdi Sai Baba to soothe him, to say this was, don't worry about it. We're moving on from here. This is only 2 minutes.
Okay, wait. We have a little clip of Kaleshwar.
Can she
see it? I'm going to screen share this. I hope my data holds all this. Okay, screen share. Can I screen share? Yeah.
I just made it. I should be.
Thanks. That thing we just pulled up. Wait, I have to pull it back up.
What are we watching?
We're looking at a little clip of Kaleshwar.
This is December 9th, 2000.
Oh, okay.
Is that the one you wanted?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Let me see if I can.
And then I'm going to go back to 1999, because he never spoke to the group in the same way after 99. And Jonathan Rosen had the notes to that. Molly has the tapes.
Let me just...
and I want to listen to them again, because it's a very tricky thing. If you don't have the protection of a guru, you can get involved in, you know, demonic sidetracks. You could really suffer a lot if you're bringing up the energy. On the other hand, you have to be sovereign in order to master the energies.
But I
Do you want
think
to see if this works?
I'm trying to get this as a screen share, but that is sort of maybe why your guru was so protective of you, because he didn't want you to bring in the negativity there.
Oh, he was. And I remember, and I felt very protected, and I still feel protected by the lineage. And I know he still loves me in that way, and he always will. But I remember calling him one time because somebody else had been speaking about, like, I just never go into negative energies, but somebody else had been speaking about some sort of negative energies, or you have to protect yourself or something like that. And I called him and I said something about it. And he said, oh, don't worry about that. You're fine. You don't ever have to worry about that. And I've never worried about it since.
That's wonderful.
So we'll show this little thing of Kalishwar.
Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry. All right, this is Kalishwar. Let me just play this.
You no need to worship any one person in your life. Don't be the slavism. Okay, I trust. I believe so and so, he will take care of everything. Don't get dependent. Amazing spark also is in you. Try to pull that out. Take care of it. You can have a devotion, but don't be a slave. So far, all in the universe, the gurus, the masters, or swamis, or the babas, or whatever it is, just you're depending on them, and just you going to them, and just they're giving kind of shaky part and healing whatever it is. Then you felt, okay, I'm happy, I received it. Whenever you felt again you need to charge, just you going and you receive healing. How long, how far?
Mm-hmm.
How far you want to be as a slave, ignoring about your own capabilities? Then later on, you're really going to get crashed.
Is that it?
Try to think about your capacity, your capabilities. You can learn the knowledge. Through the knowledge, develop it. What that person, for example, Jesus Christ, what is his habits? Shirdi Baba, what is his life, what is his habits? And his hobbies, his capacities. What is the real beauty in him, what is not in you? You think he is a divine soul. It means you are a devil soul. No, you are also pure divine. You are also pure divine. But something is missing, you are what it is. That's what I told her. Simple things.
Yeah. So isn't that that's what makes him a different, it makes him not a guru but a teacher. Did you isn't he,
You know, ultimately all gurus should be saying that. Like leading back to your own divine self.
You can still manifest what you want if you organize these.
The old Indian traditional way is, I will take care of your karma. I will eat your karma. It's up to, right? That's what the old Hindu traditions say. The old guru traditions say, give it all to me and I'll take care.
Yeah.
And that's what's changing now in this time of a Kundalini awakening for people like you and Val and maybe you, Paula, your own visions. But all the people we're talking to on the show are realizing their own divinity. And just that, actually, just that clip of Kalishwar reminded me, it woke me up. It brought me back to that time where I met him, where he was empowering people. He wasn't empowering people. He was making the space available to be empowered because he believed in people. wouldn't you say?
Well, I heard Jonathan Rosen was in the room when I said to him, can you heal government mind control? And I was really testing him because I was really frustrated with the whole guru thing and the Hindu thing. And, you know, I've done India. I took decades to get out of TM. You know, I had to sit there and take a good hard look that my better experiences, watching myself sleep, things like that, were when I started TM, not as the years went by. And he said later on, you know, he was saying, people talk about sexual abuse. What about religious abuse? What about religious abuse? So it's a very tricky thing. I mean, I've been very humbled by a lot of experiences, and I can see that it's very important. I hear you when you say you feel protected because you've got that connection with your lineage. So as long as you know the connection's there, no matter what, how people may interpret what your actions are, if you know the connection's there, you know you will not only prevail, but to not do it wouldn't be right. That you have a calling that's unique to you, and your unique calling, if it's undone, is it's not a good thing to leave this life with stuff undone.
The video that I made yesterday is called A Unique Expression of Grace.
Mm-hmm. And what's that?
What's that mean? Was speaking directly to me.
What does that mean? Unique. We're all a unique expression of grace.
Yes, that we are all a unique expression of grace, and that it takes courage to be your own unique expression of grace, and that we all need to stand forth and be our own unique expression of grace. And it doesn't matter what anybody else is saying or doing, and it doesn't matter what your religion or your guru or your sect is saying or doing, that we have to stand forth and be that, each and every one of us, and have the courage to be that, whatever.
Well, that's why Kaleshwar was such a radical teacher for India. He was saying you are divine, which was the same message we heard at the Ramtha school, and which is what Ramtha embodied. If you believe he is who he says he is, when you embody that divine, it changes you. It opens you up. It ignites your cellular structure. It gives you powers, psychic powers, and we all have that. It's just that we don't know that's what we are. So I felt benefited by my association with Kaleshwar and Ramtha and Paula, who reminds me of that, and all the people that I've.
Oh, you have this just gentle, radiating, sweet light. That's very nice.
Paula, yes, she has. Yes, she has that. You did give us a little initiation right there, Paula, when you speak.
No, I mean, what's really on my mind right now is there's a guy named Mike Gill in New Hampshire. He's got a YouTube page called State of Corruption, New Hampshire. And he actually started in life in a seminary, but that wasn't his calling. And he eventually became an extremely wealthy mortgage broker. He had many mortgage brokerage houses. And in a divorce, he started to uncover basically a whole drug running cartel, and that New Hampshire is ground zero for this cartel. So,
So what does that have to do with what we've been discussing?
So what
does that have to do with shopping?
So what I was just looking at was this list of all these people who wanted a release from him, and they were offering him $50 million to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But because he'd been in contempt of court and he was in jail for 10 days, a rich man got to see what was happening in the jails. That to me is a real Kali energy. And he said, it's not worth any money, because even if I give my children millions of dollars, because he had millions of dollars, what kind of world are they going to be living in if this corruption is going on to this high level? So he had, billboards of the actual politicians that were involved, and all of these, he was just going through the list of all these different people that wanted a release from him, lawyers and important people,
mm-hmm.
and judges. And the reason this list even existed is because these were probably all people who kicked in money and realized it wouldn't be until they could make such a whopping offer that they would feel safe to make the offer. And they thought 50 million would make them be quiet.
And so
being a person that just turned back a check for $250,000 and having almost everybody around me saying, you could use money. Why did you return $250,000? And I said, because that was the source of where I started my YouTube channel, my intellectual property. Who cares about $250,000? But look at the way that the internet is going. That work is so deep into the search engines that to have control over it for whoever follows me, and we have young people around us now that are learning the law. So even though we have politicians, we have the media, all working against us, they're starting to work with us. And even with Mike Gill, I keep thinking, if I could connect with him to show that God is always there, is always loving, always forgiving, and that a saint or a sinner is just sort of a different wave, and that nobody has erred so much that they're outside of God's love. Now, to me, if we could carry that message, which seems super idealistic, because either you're in the realm of people studying corruption and they don't want anything to do with spirituality because they think it's a bunch of airheads, and people, my father thought meditation was mental masturbation. It wasn't giving people what they needed. Or you're in the spiritual realm, and people don't want to hear about corruption. Don't tell me about this. And that's where I find.
But it's coming out now. We are in the age of Kali, in the sense where it's like consuming the end of the old age. I think this is what the last 5 months were about. This new time, the destruction and the rebirth of something beyond the known. We're moving from the normal into an unknown. You don't even want to call it abnormal. It's something new, and this is the end of the Kali Yuga.
Swing her around and show her where we are back here. I want you to see Kai.
Where are we? Tell us, Paula.
Well, what you're looking at is the back of the stage where we had a lot of bands.
Oh,
my husband's his 74th birthday, Joe Barton's 74th birthday. And a lot of people, were worried about social distancing and masks, and we weren't worried about that. So we called a party. We had all our paperwork in order. The sheriff had been notified that we knew this mask stuff was a scam. But people, somebody, Lilac, when she came in our driveway, somebody said, "Oh, you better not go there. I heard there's going to be an incident." And I've also heard of places where people decide they're just going to get together and be loving and celebrate and have music, and they don't care about baloney science. And, the electricity gets pulled, or they get hassled. I got paperwork where a whole Orthodox Jewish community was harassed. So the police start to harass us, and we just say, hey, it's not a law. It's voluntary, and we choose not to do it.
But I think it's symptomatic of the whole system breaking down and the factions that are developed within a society that really doesn't have law. Of course, there's laws that, but there's also another level of the corrupt politician that seems to be beyond the laws. And, what we're seeing every day in the news.
I think the politicians are just the fronts.
For what?
For where the big money is. I think that's why Mike Gill is interesting to me, because you've got to look at significant numbers. $50 million, probably more. He decided not to take it, not because he's a greedy guts and he wants a bigger settlement before he's quiet. But I mean, we even went to a store here. It's called Adams in Kingston, Woodstock, and it's a big produce store. They're very successful. And we weren't wearing masks, and it was like a bouncer, really big gorilla kind of guy, was very intimidating. And then Joe didn't want to go back in. I wasn't there when he was intimidated, and I said, I've been going in and out without a mask So I did my shopping, and then I went back and I said, I want to see the manager because of how my husband was treated. So the second round, they had to discipline us. Either you have to take this to court, or you've got to fight it to say you want to be at the table, you want to be one of the club,
Mhm.
or you got to put the mask on and suck it up. Because
Well, Dava had an interesting story about that last week, right?
Yeah, tell us.
Well, do you remember Dava was saying
Dave was a guest.
Dava was saying that she doesn't wear a mask, but she just brings herself into such a state of light and love that nobody gives her any weird reaction about it, because she just brings herself into emanating light, so that's how people react to her, respond.
That's what we're here to do. I mean, yes, mask or no mask, it doesn't matter to me. I'll wear a mask if I can get into a store, but we are here to spread love. That's why you're doing this show, Kai. That's why that's your job here. And Paula likes to tackle the hard questions. She likes to confront.
Well, it is interesting because that is true. And what comes through me is always be light, be love, be light, be love. Like that's the energy that always comes through me. Remind yourself that you're light, remind yourself that you're love, stay in that place, because that's what we're trying to go into now. Yeah. So we all have different unique expressions. We all have different reasons we came here, obviously.
But what I like about what Paula does, she does get into the political hardball and has a spiritual awareness that
I feel so sad. I mean, even when the supervisor was there trying to get some peace between us on the Woodstock town square, so the town square apparently is private property of the church. Well, I'm a reader at that church. It's a Dutch Reformed church, and the Dutch were here before the Catholics, and they were selling slaves on that green in the middle 1800s. But that's also the tradition where Protestants translated the Bible into English so everybody could understand, and then got burned at the stake for doing such a thing. So there's a great beauty in that tradition. The pastor there indicated to me, he showed me that my fascination with Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication came from a whole movement in the 90s where missionaries were going down to South America to try to help the, when the corporations were taking over all the resources and people were being disappeared. If they didn't go along with their resources, they would stop. And this one Christian guy was near suicidal because it was so depressing, the suicide, torturing and all of that. And then he had a revelation about the Bible. And the revelation really made a lot of sense when you go through it with that perspective, that you can't go right up against the powers, the principalities. All of them are set into place to create the creation. But you can, I don't know how to say, work with it. It's not like you're turning your back on corruption, but you don't destroy yourself trying to do it. And I was so looking forward to learning more about this tradition and this body of knowledge, which Rosenberg, in our interview, Alan, in 2000, he says Walter Wenck's book, The Powers That Be. When I tried to get it from the library, they had to go through the interlibrary thing and get it from Fordham University. So there is sequestered knowledge that is felt that if it's in the hands of the unwashed, it's going to be dangerous. And so I'm of the opinion, I think the whole Kali energy is like, let it come forward. Let the chips fall where they might. Plenty of poor people have had to face homelessness and evictions. Now, this pinch should be felt farther up. But the problem is they keep creating funny money. Now you have trillions of dollars in the CARE Act, and in order to access that money, you got to wear a mask, even if you don't believe it, because there's a code going on. There's a scam going on right in front of you, and it's like you can blow the whistle on the scam, and the most that can happen is you're made an offer to keep your mouth shut.
So if we bring this all back,
but there's a higher way than that.
Do you follow any of that, Kai? Because what I think we're trying to do on the Kundalini Hour is just put out ideas for change, ideas for awakening, ideas for dismantling an old system that doesn't work because it doesn't recognize us as energy beings, like who we are. These, it's all about materiality, that other world.
Well, we're not recognizing ourselves because we think we have to go for the money.
Right,
so
and that's what we're taught.
We're believing in the material.
We're believing it.
We're not trusting that God will provide it every single moment, always has and always will.
Well, this is the transformation we're in. What do you think, Kai? What do you say about that? About in your work in particular with that?
That is, so let me just wind it back a minute to in February, I had an insanely strong, I don't know what to say other than energy attack, except it was divine light, but it was the strongest energy I've ever felt, ever. In reflection, I know it's definitely symptomatic of everything that's happening right now, which, yes, is definitely that Kali energy. Bringing up everything to be seen, released, dispersed. So in the midst of that, everyone who, so I went through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime in this energetic thing of being tortured, in every possible way for doing the light work. Those were the memories that were coming forth. I'm sure that I was the torturer at sometimes, but that's not what was coming forth. So I had to look at that, and I had to really deeply experience humanity's underpinnings of separation, because really what it comes down to is that separation. Oh, are you guys there? I think you froze. Anyway, I'll go with what I was saying. So in the process of that, I developed the most compassionate sense of knowingness for all beings, no matter what stage of the game we're in and no matter what role we're playing. And I began seeing my quote unquote abusers as angels who, okay, now we're definitely gone. Okay. So Alan's on the phone. Hello. Yeah, I'll just finish up. Okay, great. Okay, so Alan and Paula have left. So anyway, what I was saying about all of that is I'm seeing everyone as the beautiful light of divine grace and God's love. And I know that we're all playing different roles. And I actually think we all chose to come in to play different roles. And as we find the essence of each being, no matter what role we choose to be playing, I think that that will clear the energy. I mean, that's the perspective that comes through me, that's what clears the energy, because I'm kind of the microcosm of the macrocosm. I see this experience I've had as the microcosm of the macrocosm of what's happening in the world right now. And the more I surrendered to God, the more I didn't focus on the negativity, but saw everything as light. And the more I surrendered to God and just completely surrendered that negative energy, the more the light came in, took over, and cleaned it out and cleared it for me, which is why I choose not to focus on things that don't make me feel good. And I know we all have a different expression of that, but that's my own personal expression.
Oh, okay, we're back.
Oh, okay. But I wanted to read, let me see, I have a couple things here.
We're
Mary
just,
Zana, Mary Lena says, hello, everyone from Italy. Oh, she says, how should I deal with anger during Kundalini awakening? I'll answer that in a second. Carrie Curry, hi Carrie, and let's see. I feel sometimes so much anger and I don't know why, because I am such a peaceful person. That's very normal. My hair's going all weird today, sorry. Yeah, that's very normal. So can I answer that for a second?
Yes, please, because we're just trying to get a new location for our Wi-Fi.
Okay. So what the Kundalini does is she basically, once the Kundalini is awakened, she is going to get in there and release everything that you don't need, that is no longer serving you. And that can come up is all kinds of crazy emotions. And anger is definitely a big one. So first of all, no, it's normal. It's totally normal. And as much as you can, be grateful for it. And I know when you're in the midst of anger, it's really hard to be grateful for it. But I'm also going to see what comes through. And for you particularly, so the anger is, this is interesting. The anger is disrupting your peace of mind so that you can go deeper into the depth of your being. Because, and this is something I did for a lot of years, when we have stuff beneath the surface that we know is there, but we know if we dive into it, it's going to be really big and scary. And it's something we don't want to kind of take the top off of. So we just kind of put a surface over it for a long time. But now's the time when everything has to come up. This is the year, this is the energies that are coming in now are so strong that everything has to come up. Everything has to be cleared. Everything has to be opened. And that's in our own little world, as well as in the big world, which is why so much stuff in the world is being exposed right now. Everybody's being uncovered. No, nothing can be hidden anymore. It's all being uncovered. So for dealing with your own anger, the best thing to do is sit with it. Sit with it. If the energy wants to express, allow it to. Like if you're sitting in meditation and you have a private enough space, yell, scream, do whatever the energy, the energy will yell through you, or shake. You might start shaking violently. You might have outrageous feelings for someone. Just let them be there. If you have negative, violent thoughts for someone, don't attach to them, but let them be there, because that is the Kundalini energy coming up to clear all that stuff out. So it's more of a process of just watching it. Give yourself as much time as you need to sit alone in meditation and let the energy, let the Shakti do what she needs to do until you feel like it's cleared, until you feel like it's done. Because if you're trying to live with it throughout your day without allowing the energy, without allowing the Kundalini to do what she needs to do, it's just going to start boiling up more and more and more. So sit in a room and let her do. Let her scream, let her yell, let her shake, let her, you might start doing spontaneous breathing. There's all kinds of different ways it can be expelled and released. Try not to take it out on another person. If you're recognizing that the anger's coming up for another person, kind of excuse yourself, bow out of the situation, and allow yourself to sit in a room and let the energy clear what needs to be cleared. We don't want to bring other people and harm other people in the process. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, your sound's not on.
Yes. No, that's great. I'm glad you're bringing this through, because this is a new type of way of dealing with situations that is beyond therapy. It's allowing energy to flow. I think that's really what the purpose of the Kundalini awakening, however formed. Maybe it comes up in anger. Maybe it comes up in countering the system, Paula. Maybe that's how your Kundalini is activated, because you see what's wrong. And so you can't help but want to make something right, but you have to let it flow. So that's what I hope we're doing, is allowing people to have an experience of what's true for them, whatever that is.
Exactly. And that's no one can know what's true for a person except that person. Period.
It's been wonderful to meet you.
You too.
Yeah, thanks, Kai, for being open. Of course, you didn't know anything about Paula, and I know quite a lot about her. But she keeps having experiences and revelations and is trying to change the world in her way.
Yeah, and I think that's the most beautiful expression of this energy.
Is that Kali, would you say? Is that the Kali energy?
No, it's Lakshmi, it's Saraswati.
But Kali's really about change,
you know,
though.
We've got scientific articles that even surgeons shouldn't be wearing masks, but that the public perception is such that they would be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So the question is how do you proceed without frightening someone? You think of or arms, fire and things, but today you just present yourself with a bare face and you're frightening. Because people are afraid of the air.
Yeah.
And we.
Go on. What were you saying?
I like my teacher Danny's perspective on it, where you're in the world, but you're not of it. So we can be in the world, we can walk through the world, we can see what's going on, we can experience what we're experiencing, but we're not taken in by the energy of it. We're staying in our own perspective. And so then you can choose to wear a mask or not wear a mask. Doesn't really matter. You can choose to get a vaccination or not get a vaccination, but you're not like making a theme out of it, so to speak. You know, like you're not walking into the world going, I'm not.
Where other people are offended by our action. Some people say it's irresponsible. I don't know about that. It might be if you're contagious. Of course, some people think it doesn't.
No, but the thing is,
well, you can find science on either end of the study.
Yeah, you can.
What's that?
She said you can find science on either end of the studies.
No, you can't. They say you can find it on either end. They haven't showed me that. They showed me strands of evidence, and then there's a link. People don't want to do the work. They don't want to go to the sites. And vaccinations, you should see about autism.
Oh, well.
Oh, I know. I mean,
the rates of autism.
I don't vaccinate my kids because I had a bad experience with vaccination. But I also don't. I don't know. I'm interested in that. I don't take one perspective. I allow people to choose their own perspective. But I personally, I would never vaccinate. But that's my perspective. So, but I fully get it. I mean, I fully understand that perspective, and I don't vaccinate.
Yeah, but well, good for you.
Well, you know,
so far so good.
We've accepted science as a sort of an authority, and they're not honest with saying.
It's not scientific.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're not honest with saying what they know and what they don't know. Science does do amazing things, and then they just kind of don't want to say they don't know something, and then they just fudge it. You know, they just say, "Oh yeah, we know this," until they don't know this. This is what I'm coming up against when I'm talking about UFOs. I mean, scientists say that's ridiculous, but you ask millions and millions of people around the world that's had experiences, that's seen things, and it's obvious. The guy Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, he says, no, there's no thing to it, because he's so trained, even though he's a great speaker, in what the predominant belief system is. There's no room for anything else. What were you going to say?
Well,
were you going to say something?
I was going to say that I think these arguments are getting really intense right now, and I completely avoid them. That any of these types of arguments are getting really intense right now, and I think that is, to me, an indication that everything is coming up to be purged, which is why people are taking such strong stands on everything. I mean, I think that, my belief is that we're all divine beings of light, and we just all have to purge our stuff. We all have to purge our stuff. And then I don't know. Actually, I have absolutely no idea then, but hopefully.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned, because all we can do is be examples of something.
Chop wood and carry water.
But we can also
check the mail.
Protect the what?
And check the mail. I'm off to check the mail.
But we're trying to just give a new perspective on what's possible. Let's talk about new ideas. That's why I think I like Paula's insights because they're original. And, you know, I might not agree with all of them, but they're always stimulating. always something different.
Whatever's coming.
All right, but
whatever's coming from the heart is always good. So, Mary Lena, thank you. She said you always make me cry in a good way.
Oh.
Yes, I love you. I support you.
All right. So, Kai, what's coming up next week for us?
Okay, who's coming up next week? Tom Thompson, who I'm very excited about. Tom has graciously agreed to do the show. I read Dhyan Yogi's successor's book. If you don't know who Dhyan Yogi Madhusudan Das is, you can look him up. His successor is Anandima, Shaktipat Guru. When I read the
Anandamaima? Is that Anandamaima?
No, Anandima.
Oh, I don't know Anandima.
Really? I think you do.
Maybe. Is that a Hindu teacher or is that an American version of it?
Yes, but she has an ashrams or centers here as well.
Okay.
Anyway, I had in her book, This House is on Fire, someone named Tom Thompson was mentioned in the book. And I remembered his name. And then I saw him, Tim Rostow told me about him. And then I saw him commenting on something on Tim's page. And I asked him if he would be on the show. And he said, yes. So I'm super excited. He was with both Dhyan Yogi and Baba, but now he's more in kind of a non-dual line of thought. But he also, and I love this concept of the non-dual coming into exchange with the Kundalini. And
what does that mean, the non-dual coming into exchange with the Kundalini?
Well, many of the non-dual teachers deny the Kundalini.
When you say you mean the Advaita people,
yeah,
right? None of it's real. Yeah, I don't get, they're missing the whole embodiment piece, these non-dual teachers, because Kundalini is about embodiment.
Their students are having Kundalini awakenings and then they don't know how to deal with it.
I know, they're missing something. And plus the whole Advaita thing is, you have to be in both worlds. You have to know that the world's an illusion and you have to realize that we're also in the world. So
yes, but I love that. And I bring those because, my teacher, Danny, is a bit of that.
Oh, so this guy though is bringing both those things together. So I'm curious about how he does that.
In the midst of his Kundalini experience, he had kind of an Advaitic awakening. And then he went to Gangaji, where he was able to put it all together, but he still believes that the Kundalini works through him. So, and then our guest the following week is Bonnie Greenwell, who's written 3 books on the Kundalini. And she also started with the Kundalini awakening, and then she started sitting with Adyashanti.
Oh, so really? She's also non-dual teacher, huh?
Yeah, so she's also crossing these 2 dimensions. And I love it because Muji is one who definitely denies the Kundalini energy. But yet I watch his audience and there are people in his audience having Kundalini awakenings.
I mean, I think people who deny the Kundalini energy are sort of in denial of a spiritual reality because they're making it all mind. And they're really, I think, missing the point of incarnation. And the point of incarnation is that we are the embodiment of divine energy. So why would you want to ignore that? I really want to go deeper into why some traditions think that shouldn't be recognized. I think that's actually part of the miracles of being here on the planet is to recognize that energy. I think that's amazing. I think more people should recognize that. This is the good thing about India is that they do recognize it and they build temples to people who embody the divine incarnation. And we should do more of that here. Here, you put someone in a mental institution if you start to speak in tongues or you start to have visions of the goddess or you start to peek into the divine. It's getting better, of course, in the last 20 years with the spiritual awakening in the West, but it's still not integrated like it is in India. Of course, India has its own problems because when you think it's all divine, you can just throw garbage everywhere and it doesn't matter. So, you know, I think we need
And I think the men also need to update their perspective on women in general. But
well, that's a cultural thing that I think it's changing all over the planet. Of course, men need to do that here as well. And you know, when we get Allie on the show, Allie Storm, she wrote the book, the new like a new divine feminine project one. I think we can go into the new roles of men and women as we incarnate into this sort of next wave of awakening, planetary awakening.
have you ever thought of doing a show on that, like of men coming into their divine selves? And
Yeah, I did a divine masculine roundtable with some people. I didn't lead that, but yeah, I'll send that to you. That was a really great show.
I saw that. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I think it would be so helpful to men to have more of that. It's just I've seen posts about men saying, oh, so I've started doing this work and now my heart's opening and I feel like I'm becoming a wuss, you know, like how do I embrace that?
It's a new idea on an old framework. That's the problem, that we don't have a language, we don't have a culture for this. And I think that's what New Realities is trying to build, a cultural framework. I mean, we're all working on ourselves. I mean, there's a lot we all have to work through. So, but if we can support each other and change, even when we may feel like we're going backwards or done something unconscious, you know, if we can point that out to each other, then I just had a great experience with someone. We would, you know, it can get intense when you're pointing out your unconscious to somebody, but you can take in and accept it. It could be evolutionary. It could be good if the ego doesn't get offended. So, but I think we're doing something I think we are changing as a culture. And it, you know, it's a huge span of time for real relationships to be different, because it took thousands of years to get it this way. So we need to unwind it. That's
very true. Let me see if I have it here.
But Bonnie Greenwell, you said?
Greenwell.
Yes, Greenwell.
2 weeks. Tom Thompson is next week.
She's had a real awakening. What day are we doing this next week?
Wednesday at 6:00, and Tim Rustow will be on with us next week.
Great. I'm glad you like Paula. She had to go, but she is interesting. She has a lot of experiences she hasn't even talked about. But
well, yeah, I could see that we could talk for hours and not brush the surface.
I told you when she was on Howard Stern talking about meditation or something, Howard Stern said, I don't know what you're talking about, but I love how you're saying it, because she has that very beautiful voice.
That's something similar you said when you interviewed Danny Castro, my teacher.
Oh, right. I did say that to Danny.
Said, I listened to you for hours and I have no clue what you said, but.
True. I like Danny. Yeah, I did. Because, we should have Danny on. Have you had him on the show, Danny Castro?
No, I would we have mildly discussed doing just a whole separate Danny Castro thing.
Right.
So
I'd like to see him again. I would definitely like to see Danny again.
I would love for him to share his teachings, but I don't know if he wants to do that or not. So we'll see.
I think he probably would, if it doesn't feel like we're making it. I mean, he's a teacher, so he's here to share the teachings. I mean, that's what I think.
Well, it's up to him, but we'll see.
Anyway, thanks for this.
Thank you. Yes, so next Wednesday, Tom Thompson at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, and the following Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time is Bonnie Greenwell.
That's September 10th and
September 9th and 15th.
9th, Wednesday's the 9th, right? The 2nd.
I am working on lining up some other wonderful people too.
All right, and I'll get some more people. We'll talk to Val, we'll talk to Allie, we'll talk to some people who really had powerful awakenings.
My goal is because I could bring in probably a lot of people that have my exact perspective, But my goal is to bring in a lot of different perspectives and knowledge that I don't have.
Yeah. No, I think that's good because it awakens in so many different ways. So there may be some people who have one like yours, and there may be people like this woman I met in Portland who had a whole other sort of awakening.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Bye. Thank you.
Everybody, I love you.
Thank you. Bye.